Hello and welcome to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz, and wow, Dolphins-Jaguars. Absolutely exhilarating, everyone. It's 12:10 in the a.m. Eastern time here in Columbus, Ohio, coming to you, but I am hyped after that performance we just saw. Okay, maybe it wasn't the prettiest game out there, but definitely do have some fantasy takeaways. So I want to go through some stuff there and then go through some injuries, and we'll get on out of here. So Dolphins 31, Jaguars 13. As I said, this was a game that just honestly got away from the Jaguars pretty early. It was 14-0 by the end of the first quarter, 28-7 in the third. It was just comeback mode, and it was not a good night for Gardner Minshew. And, as someone, I've seen the, tags from Cold Takes exposed and stuff in the mentions, calling, Gardner a borderline QB1 going into this game. Look, it was a bad performance by Gardner, but let's not act like this is going to be just that he's just now an awful quarterback and he's not going to, ever have a good game again. This guy put up 3 touchdowns against the Colts and the Titans in weeks 1 and 2. Last time I checked that, they're pretty good teams. We're not considering them trash. And yeah, this performance was disappointing. He missed Chris Connolly on an easy touchdown. At one point, he should have hit. Wasn't making big throws downfield really all night, checking the ball down. 275 yards and a pick on 42 attempts with 4 sacks. Not a good game. But, not having DJ Chark is huge. You look at this receiving core and, Keelan Cole, Chris Connolly, Laviska Shenault, you got talent there, but none of those guys are going to be confused with, an alpha wide receiver 1 like Chark. And it's not like Minshew is the first quarterback we've seen struggle when you take away his wide receiver 1. You look at Dak Prescott and Amari Cooper in recent years. You look at Matthew Stafford and without Kenny Golladay right now. It's not crazy to think that a quarterback on a team that's a little bit shallow in the overall talent department at that position might struggle a little bit more when they lose their main guy. So no, yes, I was a little bit overzealous. Probably ranking Minshew as the QB 12 this week, even though it was a good spot. Without Byron Jones there and company. I do think, we need to realize that this Jaguars team, as fun as they can look sometimes, they aren't going to be someone that's going to, be fighting for a playoff berth. So we got to have, a little bit lower expectations in general there. But I will say, you look at the Jaguars' upcoming schedule, and I cannot wait to go back to the well here with everyone all pissed off about this performance, because the next few weeks, they got the Bengals, the Texans, the Lions, the Chargers, the Texans again. Those could be some big performances from this passing game. Hopefully Chark is back there sooner rather than later. And, moving on, these wide receivers, Chris Connolly led the way with 8 targets. Laviska Shenault had 6. The running backs, Chris Thompson, James Robinson had 6. Keelan Cole, 5. Tyler Eifert, only 3. James O'Shaughnessy actually had more targets than Eifert at 4. So, going to be tough to expect much from Eifert. They do love him in the red zone, but I don't really think he's on the redraft or really DFS radar right now. His ceiling's just so low. And the wide receiver usage was pretty disappointing, particularly as someone, Laviska Shenault finished with 33 yards, and as someone that had his over at 37.5, you hate to see it, but that'll happen. That'll happen in life. And yeah, so Laviska did look good though. He had a 3rd down catch early on that broke a couple tackles and kind of showed some of that explosion, but only 1 carry. And I think for him to be useful weekly in fantasy, we're gonna need to see somewhere around 5 carries and then the 5-6 targets he got per week. So just bad game script again. I don't think it's going to be super indicative of Laviska moving on, but certainly not someone I think that's going to flirt with more than a more boomer bust wide receiver 3 value this season. Chris Connolly, pretty bad game. I know I mentioned Minshew missed him on 30-yard score, but Connolly had at least 2 drops, and the Minshew picked to Xavier Howard at the end of the game. The way Aikman was talking about it seemed like more miscommunication than anything. Maybe it was Minshew's fault, but either way, it's not like Connolly was going up there and helping the guy a lot. So not the performance we want to see out of him. And Keelan Cole, 43 yards on 5 targets, got dinged up bad at the end of the game. I wouldn't be shocked if he's in the concussion protocol come next week. And, again, without DJ Chark here, it's just going to be tough to treat any of these guys as realistic, season-long options. But the one guy in the Jaguars offense we can be hyped about is James Robinson, because he went out there and did his thing. 11 carries, 46 yards, pair of touchdowns. Also caught all 6 of his targets for 83 yards. In a game that, again, the Jaguars are trailing 21 points in the third quarter, for Robinson to catch all 6 of those targets and get that much pass down work. It was surprising, as someone that, was yelling from the mountains to fade Leonard Fournette throughout this offseason. One of the big reasons was because I thought Chris Chris Thompson would be far more involved in game scripts like this. And, we'll never know. Maybe with Leonard Fournette there, they wouldn't have felt as confident because Fournette was never averaging this sort of yards per target efficiency. But either way, in this case, Robinson is getting some of those targets. And that could be the difference between, us treating him as a borderline RB2 and a borderline RB1. So I really do think, in this week I had Robinson top 20, and it's going to be a situation where a couple more injuries happen and we're not going to be talking crazy about getting this guy up there, in that top 15 range. So not the most, electric back or anything, but hey, he's got the volume. He's not bad by any stretch, and he's shown that even in awful game scripts for him, he's the goal line back and he gets actual targets. So good stuff from Robinson. And yeah, Chris Thompson, even if Robinson got hurt, they would bring in someone else for early down work. I don't think Chris Thompson's going to provide really any fantasy value all season. So that's the Jaguars side of things. Over to the Dolphins. So there's going to be a lot of disappointment from people that played any of these wide receivers. It's because Fitzpatrick threw 20 passes. He completed 18 of them, but only 160 yards and 2 passing touchdowns. Like, we're going to see bigger games from Fitzpatrick when the Dolphins aren't building these types of leads. Because, come on, they're the Dolphins. There might be a sneaky, fun, bad team like they were in the second half of last year, but, they're not going to consistently build 3-score leads. I think that's a fair thing to say. But you look at these wide receivers, Devonte Parker, 5 targets. Gaskin, the running back, had 5. And after that, Gesicki with 3 targets was the number 3 receiver. Preston Williams only had 2. So Preston and Gesicki each scored red zone touchdowns to kind of make up for these bad performances. But we'll see a bigger ceiling in the future. I'm not going to move away too much from Gesicki as a tight end 1. I would say he's probably in the lower end borderline. And similar to what I was talking about with the Jaguars, same thing applies to the Dolphins, where we just got to probably rein in expectations a little bit. And in general, if you're deciding between 2 guys and one's on a high-powered offense like the Cowboys or the Falcons or Seahawks or whoever it might be, and the other one's a Jaguars Dolphins guy, probably take the guy in the better offense, better team, likely higher Vegas game total. So Devonte Parker did lead the way with 69 receiving yards, caught all 5 of his targets. Throughout the game, Troy Aikman kept talking about Parker, can barely run out there and he's not 100%. Okay, I agree. He didn't look like the most athletic version of Parker I've ever seen, but he was running good routes out there, still getting the corners to respect him enough on the deep ball to come back and make some nice catches on comeback routes. And again, caught all 5 of his targets against real life NFL corners. CJ Henderson kind of had a rough game. They were targeting him a lot, but I wouldn't say Parker is someone that you just need to completely fade out there. He's been playing full-time role now. 96% snaps this week. We had Preston at 63% and Gesicki at 52%. So it's not like Parker is just not getting the usage he should be getting because he's injured. He's actually still getting plenty. So again, he'll get more than 5 targets in a game when Fitzpatrick is throwing the ball more than 20 times. I get it in DFS or something if you don't want to exactly load up on Parker while he's not seemingly 100%, but I still think he's worthy of starting. And season long, I wouldn't let this hamstring injury, as long as he's playing 96% of the offensive snaps, dissuade you from doing so. But yeah, the thing is with Fitzpatrick, we might get some garbage time work for these receivers in the upcoming weeks, but the schedule, it's not looking nearly as good as what the Jaguars are going through. They got up next, the Dolphins play the Seahawks and the 49ers. Broncos, Chargers, Rams, Cardinals. So, Fitzpatrick, he just put up over 300 and a couple scores on the Bills, so he can make the most out of a bad matchup. I get it, but, I don't think we're going to see quite the same sort of end the season run for him where only Lamar Jackson scored more fantasy points from week 7 on. Hey, maybe Fitzmagic continues to just do his thing and he gets back into it, but I would guess at some point we'll see 2 out there. So we'll see. Quickly with the running game, then we'll get on to some injuries going into the weekend. Myles Gaskin dominated a touch share, 22 carries, 66 yards on the ground, also caught all 5 of his targets for 29 yards. And no other running backs, not Breida, Howard, even Patrick Laird, none of them even had a target. So Gaskin is the pass down back, but honestly, he's kind of like Devin Singletary in that he's going to play 60-70% snaps a week, if not more. This week he actually played 77% of the snaps. Matt Breida was only 15% and Howard was 8%. We're going to have Gaskin at 70% snaps, and he's going to flirt with 20 plus touches, and that's great. That should be in a starting lineup, but Jordan Howard is truly one of the only vultures in the entire league. I think normally we overrate goal line backs and kind of what they're doing. A lot of times it's more just the offense is on the field. They get down inside the 5-yard line. Whatever running back is in the game usually gets the touches. They don't, actively call timeouts or stop the momentum of the offense just to put in whatever running back they need for the play. But the Dolphins are getting pretty close to doing that with Jordan Howard. Absolutely hilarious stat line through 3 games now. 16 carries, 12 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Pretty ridiculous. So, as opposed to James Robinson, who, was able to get all those 83 receiving yards and 6 targets in that kind of bad game script game, he's also getting the goal line touches. I mean, Robinson's someone I think is going to flirt with that RB1 borderline more so than Gaskin. Again, like Singletary, I mean, Gaskin can be a solid, low ceiling RB2, but the touchdown floor is just so much worse. And I mean, Singletary's got to deal with Josh Allen stealing his touchdowns, but with Gaskin, it really is there with Howard. So fun game, 31-13 Dolphins. Before we get some injuries, want to quickly give a shout out to our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. If you like fantasy football, you need to be playing on Underdog Fantasy. It's my favorite new fantasy football app. Website and app are super slick and by far the best experience out there. Do snake draft games for real money every week. You draft a new team every week and get a shot at big prizes. The team that built the app is top notch and the customer support best in the game. They're constantly updating and adding new features. Look up Underdog Fantasy on your app store or go to underdogfantasy.com to play today and make sure to use code PFF. After you do, let them know that I sent you. So on to some injuries for the weekend, and make sure to check out PFF's own Mario Pilato, who's been doing these awesome injury articles on the site. He goes through all the official injury report to give analysis on the fantasy relevant players. Tells you how bad the injury is, if you should expect them to be limited when they're out there and what it might be. So make sure you check that out for updates throughout the weekend. But starting things off, Christian Kirk, Arizona Cardinals wide receiver, is not practicing with a groin injury. He's number 1 in the NFL in average target depth. I mean, it's checkdowns pretty much to Hopkins and Fitzgerald. Not checkdowns, but just short passes to Hopkins and Fitzgerald. They're both like bottom 10 in average target depth, but Christian Kirk is number 1 if you lower the target threshold below 10. I was kind of looking in on him as a potential DFS, GPP play, and just hope they get one or two of those big deep balls. But, if he's going to be banged up, I think I'm going to be out on him if he's active. The big move here is if Kirk is out, then Andy Isabella would be a viable DFS start throw. So Isabella truly is one of the more talented backups in the league. It just doesn't have a big role more weeks than not. With the Falcons, Julio Jones with a hamstring injury, re-injured it mid-game week 2. He hasn't practiced all week, Wednesday or Thursday. It's tough to not start the guy if he's out there. We've seen Julio play through injuries plenty of times before, and he's had weeks of practice where he's just hardly doing anything. He goes out there on Sunday and does his thing. But at a minimum, just realize you should have a replacement ready, and I would keep expectations about a true eruption in check. With the Bills, Zach Moss has not practiced all week due to a toe injury. So I wouldn't say Singletary is going to enter this like RB1 zone or anything like that if Moss is out. I mean, again, the Josh Allen vulture concerns are always there. He doesn't check it down to his backs hardly. And TJ Yeldon is going to be active if Moss is out. We saw this last year with Frank Gore. Singletary's role didn't really change all that much depending on who the other back was. So Singletary's still there for his usual kind of RB2 role, but I just don't think Moss being out is going to result in a huge ranking change. Philip Lindsay with the Broncos out with turf toe. This is an example where we actually should be adjusting the ranks accordingly, because Melvin Gordon flirted with 80% snaps last week with him out. I thought Royce Freeman would more or less take the Philip Lindsay role. That's not what happened. I've been getting some starting to sit questions about Gordon, and you got to treat him as a top 16, 17 back. He looked pretty good last week, and Driscoll I think is going to keep this offense a little more competitive than people are expecting. So I get it. Melvin Gordon's not an RB1 right now, but hey, he's getting RB1 usage with Philip Lindsay out. And if you're getting RB1 usage, even if you're just okay with it, you can still provide RB2 production at least. Also on the Broncos, Jerry Jeudy limited with ribs injury. I think he'll play, and you can treat him as kind of like an upside wide receiver 3 almost at this point with Sutton out. But, I think the other story here is that, hey, KJ Hamler, 62% snaps last week, 7 targets. He looks a lot like the Broncos, number 2 pass game target, maybe probably number 3 behind Noah Fant, but only 3,000 on DraftKings this week. that is your freaking dart throw, everyone. KJ Hamler, 3K on DraftKings. The projected ownership doesn't even seem that high. I don't know if, it's just he never got to go to the combine, but Hamler, man, if he could have gone to the combine, we're talking legit 4-2 guy, super explosive, and, I plan on having plenty of exposure to him this week. Detroit Lions wide receiver Kenny Golladay has still been limited with his hamstring injury, but it seems like he's on track to get back. Hopefully this gets his offense back in the 2019 mode. I mean, first year with Darrell Bevel, Stafford had a league-high 11.6 yard average target depth. Right now that's down to 9.1. I get it. Like, why gun the ball downfield when you don't have as many awesome receivers to go get them downfield at the moment? So it makes sense that goes back up with Golladay. Either way, excited to hopefully see better days from this Lions offense in the near future. With the Packers, Devonte Adams has been not practicing on Wednesday with a hamstring injury, and he was only rehabbing on Thursday. So if he's out, Malik Taylor will probably enter 3 wide receiver sets, and I think MVS and Lazard are probably upside wide receiver 3s, wide receiver 4, respectively. I would prioritize MVS over Lazard, but I think Aaron Jones is the guy that really benefits. I mean, no Devonte. We're talking about Aaron Jones, like legit top 3 back. I'd probably only put him behind Zeke and Kamara because he's averaged 7 targets per game with Adams sideline or injured mid-game over these last 2 seasons. And this year already, he's had second most targets among RBs, only behind Kamara. So even more locked in target share without Adams would be awesome for Aaron Jones. Colts tight end Jack Doyle returned to limited practice Thursday with this ankle injury. If he's back, then I think him and Mo Alley Cox are just off the table. It's going to be a split situation. It sounds like he is on track to return. Chiefs receiver Tammy Watkins did not practice on Thursday with a concussion. Monday night game, so we're gonna need to find out Saturday what the status is. If he's questionable, then you're not going to be able to do much, but might be Mecole Hardman season, people. And this was part of the allure of the Hardman experience. I mean, it was always going to be tough. One scenario for Hardman going this year was, okay, hopefully he just rises up and has a starting role in the offense. Obviously that didn't happen, but the other allure was that he truly is one of the only wide receiver handcuff in the league, because whenever he's out there, whenever he gets targets, good things happen. We don't have examples of Hardman being out there on the field and just not doing anything with his opportunity. It's just getting out there. And if any of Watkins, Tyreek, Demarcus Robinson go out, it becomes Mecole Hardman season, people. So I cannot wait. I would be fine treating him as a top 40 option moving forward with Watkins out. Josh Jacobs with a hip injury and Darren Waller with a knee injury. Both have missed Raiders practice on Wednesday and Thursday. Seems like a potential workload management thing. I mean, both these guys were getting fed last week. But hey, if they do end up being out, I do think Devontae Booker would be Jacobs' backup, not Jalen Richard. They've used Booker in that DeAndre Washington role, and Yeah, I just think they view Richard as more of a scat back type. Booker would be the one I would want to kind of jam in there. Could be a legit, RB2 option if Jacobs does happen to be out, but I don't think it's anything to really worry about. And then for Waller, if he's out, there's so many tight end options out there. You'll probably find someone else, but Foster Moreau could be a potential DFS guy. Definitely not Jason Witten. I hope not, but who knows? Foster Moreau is actually pretty good. With the Chargers, running back Justin Jackson, still out with this quad injury, and hey, Justin Jackson's out. Fire up Joshua Kelly as a legit, top 24 RB, but just keep in mind, eventually when Justin Jackson comes back, it's going to be a situation where I think he's going to really make some Joshua Kelly fantasy managers bad, because Justin Jackson has been really good with the Chargers. I mean, literally 5.1 yards per carry with them on 81 rushes over the past 3 seasons. So I know Joshua Kelly has flashed a little bit, but I mean, I wouldn't say he's just, seized this job from Justin Jackson. They're going to just bury him on the bench, and credit to Kelly. His film has looked better in the numbers, and he's done some decent things in the receiving game, but, only averaging 3.5 yards per attempt on 35 carries. I don't think Kelly has done enough to necessarily pull away from Jackson if he's healthy and out there. So he's not healthy right now. You don't have to worry about it, but in week 5 or 6 or whenever the hell Jackson happens to get back, I would be fading Kelly in that immediate week. With the Rams, Cam Akers not practicing all week due to a ribs injury. Malcolm Brown is back at practice with a broken pinky. But look, you got to think Darrell Henderson's going to be the guy here. I mean, Akers with the ribs and shoulder injuries kind of worry me with running backs, because you're kind of expecting them to be able to run, take all that contact, and not worry, not think twice about it. Particularly with Akers being the rookie, and they maybe don't know how he'll respond to this. It just makes sense that Henderson would be the guy this week. He was the best back on the Rams last week. I know Brown's been playing fine. I think he'll still get some carries and touches if he's able to. But when your position's main priority is holding on to the ball, should not be discounting this finger injury. either. So, definitely fine slotting in Henderson in the starting lineups of pretty much all shapes and sizes this week. With the Saints, got about 6 more of these, everyone. Michael Thomas hasn't been practicing all week with an ankle injury. I'm team Traquan Smith over Emmanuel Sanders after seeing it last week and kind of the roles they're doing. It did just seem like Smith more or less took Thomas's routes, but honestly, it's Kamara number 1 and probably Jared Cook number 2. So, okay, like wide receiver 3 range for Traquan, that's fine, but I just would not expect, anything near wide receiver 1, even wide receiver 2 production. He's the wide receiver 1 on his team, but the number 3 pass game target most likely. With the Giants, just want to point out that there's a lot of injuries on both sides of the ball. I think it's all pointing towards Daniel Jones, Darius Slayton, even Golden Tate and Evan Ingram really putting together a big week because we know Saquon's out, but also Sterling Shepard is on IR with a toe injury. And then you look at this 49ers defense, which normally we want to stay away from, but Richard Sherman, Joey Bosa, Dee Ford, Sullivan Thomas, all these guys are out, and there's even some more guys that got banged up. So really think Daniel Jones and company are going underrated this week. With the Jets, Perryman ankle, Hogan ribs, Crowder hamstring, all looking iffy. The Jets' best wide receivers, their tight end, who they insist on leaving in the block on half of their dropbacks. Braxton Berrios, he had the touchdown last week, but that was just on a play where Darnold made a fantastic throw rolling out after getting away from some pressure. So that was also against backups. So I don't think it's a situation we should be chasing points there at Berrios. With the Eagles, Jalen Reagor on IR with the finger injury. Alshon Jeffrey got back to practice. He's still dealing with his foot issue, but he'll probably be out this week. So even if he's in, Deshaun Jackson week, perhaps. Everyone, maybe. I mean, they sure couldn't stay in front of OBJ last week. I know D-Jack still has some speed, so we'll see there. I would be fine going back to the well with Deshaun Jackson with his snaps and health looking much better in week 2. With the Steelers, Juju Smith-Schuster with a knee and Deontay Johnson missed practice on Wednesday. They're both expecting to be fine. We'll just note that, both these guys are fantasy wide receiver 2s, and it's unfortunate, I guess, for Juju fantasy investors that thought he would be this sky-high wide receiver 1, but he's still going to be playing productive. And it's just more so Deontay is truly looking like that wide receiver 2 that I think is garnering the hype. But I think if you only kind of read Twitter and that kind of stuff, you'd probably think Deontay is just outright wide receiver 1 potentially. But I think it's more so just that it's a fluid 1A 1B situation, which was obviously not how their average draft positions were being approached this entire offseason. So that's where all the optimism comes from. Also mentioned the 49ers defensive injuries, but they're not healthy on offense either. George Kittle has been limited with this knee injury. Sounds like there's some concern about the turf, though. It's just tough to really trust him too much this week. Seems like limited snaps could be on the table. And when you take that into account, then Mostert and Coleman out with knee injuries, Deebo Samuel's still away. Jared McCain looks like the number 1 playmaker out there that Kyle Shanahan's going to want to get the ball to. So, I do have Mike Davis ahead of him. I want to prioritize Mike Davis in the waiver wire stuff. But, McKinnon certainly viable for that starting spot this week. With the Titans, A.J. Brown still not practicing with a knee injury. So, continue to fire up Corey Davis as, top 35 receiver. And Adam Humphries and Jonnu Smith have some appeal again. Jonnu, by the way, fantasy overall tight end 1 through 2 weeks. I don't think it'll hold, but definitely, top 10 option, it seems like, throughout the rest of the year. What a beast. And last one right here, a Washington football team wide receiver, Steven Sims, DMP with a toe. And, okay, you're not going to play him or Inman or any of these wide receivers, but might just be time for Antonio Gibson to get there in the starting lineup. 67% snaps last week. I thought he was going to be, kind of the slasher pass down guy with Peyton Barber and or Bryce Love taking early down stuff. No, Barber got pretty much benched, and it was only McKissick and Gibson out there. So I think we're going to be in a situation after this week where everyone's going to be starting Gibson moving forward. Love him this week. So quick word from our sponsor before we get out of here. Monkey Knife Fight. All first-time depositors at Monkey Knife Fight that put at least $20 in their account while using promo code PFF will receive a free PFF Edge annual subscription, $40 value for just $20. And you can turn that $20 into even more money while playing DFS and prop games. So go to Monkey Knife Fight, deposit your $20 with promo code PFF today, and receive that free PFF Edge annual subscription. Thank you for listening. It's been the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. We have shows out every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Have some guests on for the Wednesday and Thursday episodes to break down the week. And then I'm always here solo reviewing the games after Monday, Thursday, and Sunday night. So thank you all for listening as always. I wish all of you the best of luck in your week 3 matchups. Go make that money. Go get those wins. Go inspire the fantasy squad. And just have a great overall weekend. So take care, everyone.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel. And if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. A little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.